Welcome to this vodcast looking at the C-Scope exemplar lessons and how to access them. Let's go ahead and get started. First thing we need to do is go to the Rankin C-Scope site, which will be rankin.nerddeveloper.net. So we'll go ahead and head in that direction. Once you're there, you're going to go ahead and log in. Once you've logged in, you come to the C-Scope main page. And if we're looking for lessons, we're going to find them under the unit map. So the first thing we'll do is access our grade level. In today's example, we're going to look at 8th grade mathematics, but this example will translate to all other grade levels in math, science, and social studies. English language arts, you can still access the lessons in the same way, but they have many different features. One thing I'll mention before we select the grade level is that if you're looking for the high school grades, grades 9, 10, 11, or 12, you will not find that content under those specific grade numbers. Instead, you'll find it under HS for high school, basically because the high school courses are not really set out to be sequenced in a particular manner. You could take Algebra 1 in 9th grade, or you could take Geometry. And so they don't assign those courses to a specific grade level. Instead, they put them all under high school. But for today, we're looking at 8th grade mathematics, so we'll pick our content area. Once we've done that, it's going to populate the column right underneath with the unit plan for this course. We'll see, for example, that our first unit is going to be on rational numbers, second unit on operations, and third unit on real numbers, all within the first 6 weeks. And this is tied directly to the year-at-a-glance document that Hannah Carter and the folks from Region 18 showed us in the last few weeks. So let's start planning for next year, starting with Unit 1, rational numbers. We go ahead and click on that. And now the right side populates. We'll see we have a couple options, including view the IFD and view the assessment. We did look at the IFDs or instructional focus documents with the Region 18 folks, but I'm just going to tab over and we'll look at that quickly. This is the instructional focus document for 8th grade mathematics for the very first unit. We see that this unit will take 5 days. On the top right, we have some additional resources if we wanted to change out some activities or needed supplementary materials. And the rest of this document we really have walked through with the Region 18 folks, so I really won't spend that much time on it, but I will scroll down to here at the bottom where we get to the most important part, I suppose, the TEKS, the actual standard for the students, and a specificity, showing us what the students are going to have to do, compare and order rational numbers in various forms, and then gives us some specificity on what those forms would look like, how they should order them, etc. Okay, so that's the IFD. We'll also look at the assessment, which was available by clicking on that link, the page we were just on. This is for grade 8, Unit 1, Rational Numbers. These are some sample questions basically that we can use as part of our assessment, or we could use this assessment. We do have Scantron set up. Many of the questions are multiple choice. Many of the questions mirror both the tax and what we're expecting from the STAR in terms of rigor, and definitely in terms of the content since they're related to the TEKS. But you'll also get into questions that are short answer, like this question where they're having to order without any multiple choice answers, and some other questions where they're having to work things out and also explain their thinking. Okay, show or explain how you got your answer. The end of every assessment document will be a key with answers to the multiple choice, answers to the short answers, and some guidance on essay type questions. Okay, so that's a good thing to look at when you're doing unit planning to see what students are going to be expected to do at the conclusion of this unit. This unit we'll see has 2 lessons, so we'll start in the first one by clicking on that. It'll take us into a new page within the C-Scope browser. If at any point you want to get out of this lesson and go back to where we just were, you can click on Close here up in the upper right corner. Alright, from there we see a lesson synopsis about what this lesson's about, a lesson organizer, which we're going to click on in a minute, and some background information. Again, the math, the science, the social studies all are set up in this similar format. Opening up the lesson organizer, we're going to see that this is a usually 1 to 3 page document laying out this lesson. So we'll see our synopsis again, then we'll see the specific TEKS that the students are responsible for. So for example, in this one, the student is expected to compare and order rational numbers in various forms. We just saw that on the instructional focus document, which is the guiding document for the unit. And now we're looking at kind of the guiding document for this one lesson, one of 2 lessons that are in this unit. We'll see a specific performance indicator, what the students are going to do as part of this lesson to prove or to demonstrate their mastery of those TEKs we were just looking at. Some key understandings and guiding questions. Key understandings are with bullets and guiding questions are dashed. Basically the big ideas for the unit and the big questions that students should be able to answer at the conclusion of this unit. Okay, scrolling down a little further, we will find some vocabulary for this unit. There was some vocabulary on the instructional focus document, but the vocabulary within the lessons themselves is goes much deeper, and so this gives us an idea of the terminology that we and the student should be using as part of this unit. Materials we might need, and then additional resources. We've seen these already on the IFD as well. And then we come to this, which is perhaps one of the most important sections, advanced preparation. You will find that CSCOPE is very time intensive to implement, but very worthwhile. And it focuses on a lot of student activities, and those take time for us to set up in advance. So looking here, we'll see what we need to do in advance to get this unit ready. 2 through 6 are just printouts. That's no big deal. We can print those from our laptop, we can double side, we can hole punch, and all that. That won't take very much time. But this index card set is something that we're going to have to prepare in advance, where we write rational numbers from a set on an index card. Well, that could take a bunch of time depending on how many numbers we're talking about. Also, there might be questions like, do we want to put those on maybe colored index cards? Should we have them laminated so that we can use them again next year or in review activities later in the year? One thing I will mention is that throughout this year, I had office aides do a lot of this work for me, and it saved me a bunch of time. So do use the resources that we have available. Go back to this layout. Okay. As we scroll further down the page, we'll see that the page is now divided into 2 remaining sections. The instructional procedures, which are laid out in the 5E model, which Hannah Carter talked with us about at the beginning of last school year. And then at the very bottom, we're going to have all the different handouts, and these are usually done in a sequential manner as well. Let's start with day 1. If we click on the Engage for day 1, okay, it brings down this menu. This over here is kind of teacher notes, teacher procedures, and then these are your resources and additional things to keep in mind. Okay? So they start by saying you can actually use a different resource for this if you'd like to, and the links to that were in the lesson organizer and also in the IFD. Otherwise, we can do this. As students enter the classroom, distribute 1 or more index cards to each student. So they're actually all going to get an index card with a different rational number on them. These are the index cards that it said we had to prepare in advance. Okay, most all of your resources will be over on this right-hand side, and they're usually available as a PDF, such as this document. But we notice there's no PDF there for the index card set. If it's not in the right-hand side, when you scroll down to the bottom in the handouts, there's the index card set right there. So let's go ahead and click on that and see what that looks like. Okay, this comes up as a PDF as well. Write each rational number below on a separate index card and distribute to students. So I could actually give this to an aide and have them neatly write each one of these on a different index card and laminate them for me, put them in a baggie, and I'm going to need 1 set of those for a class. And you'll see there's numerous cards there. We've got fractions, decimals, percents, all kinds of kind of more weird ones, and then we've got some that are negative as well. Okay, so keep that in mind for the activity we're about to look at. So going back up, if we follow along the teacher procedures, we'll see what the point of this is. For day 1, we're only going to use the positive rational number cards. And then we're going to have students form groups of 3 by matching their cards. So if I only have 12 students, I might only hand out those first 12 cards. Someone's going to have a 1/2, someone's going to have a 50%, someone's going to have a 0.5, and they need to get together with those people and realize that they are the different representations of the same number. Okay? So then they'll sit in their groups and we'll walk through some different questions. Don't feel like these questions are meant to be prescriptive. They're really just meant to give you some ideas about what kind of discussion might we have after they've grouped up. What do I kind of want to lead them through? Right? So that's the engage piece. And then that's on day 1. We'll go on and move on to the explore explain. So you can click on that to open it up. Okay, so after we've done that activity, we're going to move on to relating rational numbers. And again, the handouts are usually here, actually just up in this panel in this case, so you can click on that. Okay, so after doing this activity where we matched up with different representations of the same number, and then as a big group we discussed how do you go from one to the other, how do you know what's equivalent, we'll be working on this activity, which is 4 pages long. And as you can see, it's all about the different representations, going from a circle picture to a fraction to a decimal to a percent, or going in the other direction based on what you have. Okay. Second page, we're actually going to describe in our own words, how do we do that? How do we go from one to the other? Scrolling down a little bit further, then there's a different application of this, applying this to someone's budget and creating a pictorial model of what that would look like. And then numerous questions analyzing that information. Okay, now you will notice that this was a 4-page paper and there were only 4 pages in this document. So we might wonder, well, is there a key to that? And there is. Sometimes, for example, in the high school math courses, when you open up these PDFs, that document was 4 pages for the students. You actually would have opened it up to an 8-page document where the first 4 pages were the student copy and the second 4 pages, or last 4 pages, I guess, 5 through 8, are the key. So just take a look at that before you do any printing, because they might have the key at the end of it and you might want to only print certain pages. Otherwise, as in the case here in the 8th grade math, the keys are actually down here at the bottom. So we just looked at relating rational numbers. This would be the student version. And relating rational numbers key, if we go ahead and open that up, we're going to get the teacher version with all the answers written in. And how they do this typically is to write the answers in red. So if you're looking at this, anything written in red is part of the key, and anything written in black is what they would have had on their document. So we're still on day 1. We've worked through that activity, kind of explaining how, working back and forth between the different versions, but explaining it as well. And then there's an additional practice provided for homework. So we can click on that link as well. Okay, this brings up a 2-page possible homework assignment that you could use, or you could use bookwork instead. But this, you'll see, aligns very well with what we're doing in class together. Has the different conversions, and then has another application problem where they also have to explain and justify their strategies. Okay, I don't want to walk too much through this unit, but I did want to show you how you access all these different pieces. We've looked at day 1. If you're moving on to day 2, you would click on that link. It would open up the next piece, which is another Explore Explain piece. Again, it gives you an option to go to another resource if you'd like to, or we can go through and keep working on this lesson. For example, what's going to happen in this lesson is we're going to take these index cards and next they're going to get an index card, and rather than matching it with other people, they're going to have to look at just their index card and write the 2 different equivalent versions of it on their own, because we did review that yesterday, so they now should be familiar with that. Then this lesson will progress to, if you remember from the TEKS, they're supposed to order and compare these numbers. They're going to take all those different index cards and create, as a class, a number line where all of those rational numbers are ordered, both positive and negative. So you can see how these different lessons build on themselves. Okay. You'll find a lot of good teacher notes along the side. These can be different tips or tricks. These can be things to watch out for, and I found a lot of valuable nuggets in this section as well. Okay. Again, do not feel like all these different questions are prescriptive. They're just meant to give you some idea on how you could lead some of these valuable discussions, so that it's not just about the activity and doing the activity, but what synthesis comes from that activity. And as I showed you all before, you can close out of that in the top corner. Well, remember that this unit actually had 2 lessons, so if you wanted to access the second one, you would click right here. I hope this gives you a brief overview of how to access the different parts of a C-Scope lesson. It makes you a little bit more familiar, so we can kind of be looking at some of these things now before the new school year starts, especially if there's some preparation that needs to be done. We could have a lot of that done before we even go on break for the summer.